Marlis Muting, Zen teacher from Lippstadt, Germany, to join us today. Thank you very, very much, Marlis, for agreeing to this. I don't know whether you can really feel it from far away in Germany on the Zoom, but this Sangha is, I think we can say it's sort of warm Sangha that you know, is very, very welcoming for you, and thrilled to have you coming. So please, I hope you can sort of feel a little bit of that through the Zoom virtual connection. It's really a very nice thing for me to sort of, as it were, share, you know, these great teachers that you've already had some taste of over these previous months. Marlis is somebody who has I've been sort of in awe of in some ways for many reasons, including her extremely devoted work with deep suffering as a psychiatrist, and the combination of that with her, you know, deep, clear Zen practice and wisdom seems to me a very special thing. Marlis also has a key role at many levels in Sanbo Zen. She organizes all the Kenshikai teachers retreats. I mean, quite apart from the ones that she has actually hosted herself. Last year in Osnabrück, we had the retreat was organized beautifully by Marlis. I mean, they're always organized beautifully and she always has a hand in it, but this one was specifically her Sangha hosting us. The other thing that I think that I might just share is that Marlis also has she exemplifies this sort of key ingredient, so to speak, of Sanbo Zen, that all teachers are not just theoretically still students. We really are still students, you know, and really pushing ourselves always to get clearer, and under the guidance of, you know, our dear abbot Ryoan Roshi, and Marlis is, I think it's fair to say, you know, tireless in this pursuit, ever greater clarity. I've had the good fortune of staying in Ryoan Roshi's Zendo in Tokyo, Ryoan An, while Marlis was there as well, and you know, just really having this profound sense of a you know, very sort of serious Zen student, a very compassionate person, a very impressive person. So Marlis, thank you for coming. I hope that all the technology is working fine, and that you will shortly be filling our screen and filling our hearts with your wisdom. Thank you again, Marlis, for coming. So I guess, Luke, can you sort of hand it over to Marlis, please?
Yes.
Dear Henry Roshi, dear members of Mountain Cloud Sangha, thank you from my heart for the honor and precious opportunity to deliver a teisho in your virtual Zendo. When Henry asked me for a teisho, I was quite surprised and felt a bit tense. Henry is such a good teacher and so advanced on the way that I'm not sure what I can do for you. You're really lucky to have him as the leader of Mountain Cloud Zen Center, and I wish you that your Sangha is growing and thriving under Henry's guidance. After some hesitation whether I should give this teisho, I finally told myself maybe there is one single person in the audience for whom my teisho is helpful, then it's worth all the effort. And Henry's challenge could help me to clarify and deepen my own understanding. The topic of my teisho are the powerful questions Master Tosotsu is asking us in the famous Mumunkan koan number 47. The reason why Zen is still practiced today after a history of 15 centuries are the vital questions it puts and its unique way to answer these questions, especially the question of life and death. At present, we are standing at a turning point in human history, challenged by the corona pandemic, the climate change, and big changes in politics and society. More than ever, it is necessary to put the questions that matter and let the answers arise from the essence of our being. Questions are playing an important role in my own Zen history. After a short, totally unexpected glimpse of an absolute reality beyond space and time at age 12 at my Catholic confirmation, I asked myself, how can I experience this again? Was this God? How can I get nearer to God? 3 years later, my classmates and I were introduced into the Zen at a retreat of our Catholic high school. At once I felt that this could be a way to experience God, and started to sit at home without teacher, just with the help of books. When moments of stillness happened during the Zen without the usual mixture of thoughts and feelings, anxious questions appeared. What happens when there are neither thoughts, nor feelings, nor body sensations? Do I cease to exist? Does a practice lead to God where one forgets about God? At age 19, I left home in order to study medicine in Essen. The first years of my studies were an overwhelming experience, and after a while I ceased praying and doing Zazen. The encounter with dying patients in the 5th semester was a real shock for me. Doubt, fear, and serious questions filled my mind. What if there is no life after death? What if people who have a hard life, get ill and die young, simply have bad luck? What if this is just a material world without any deeper meaning behind it? What if God and resurrection are nothing but wishful thinking? A conversation with a hospital chaplain could not diminish my intense fear of death. But silently sitting in front of a cross in the clinic chapel gradually calmed me down, and after a few weeks, I started again with daily zazen and finally decided that I must find a Zen teacher and solve the problem of life and death once and for all. In 1985, I became a Zen student of Father Johannes Kopp in Essen, who had just been appointed Zen teacher by Koan Yamada Roshi. As a Catholic priest, Father Johannes wanted to integrate Zen practice and contemplation, the Christian tradition of silent prayer. In 2002, he invited Kubota Roshi, a third abbot of Sanbo Zen, to give a session at his Zen center in Essen. This session was my first one under the guidance of a Japanese Zen master. Kubota Roshi gave excellent teachings on Hekigan Roku number 6. Master Umon's famous koan, "Every day is a good day," and on a text by the Christian mystic Master Eckhart, "A really good man just wants to be with God, even if this means walking through hell. Then pain is painless pain, and suffering is without suffering." Migaku Sato Roshi interpreted the teachings for us from Japanese into German. At that time, I was not only working on Denkoroku koans, but also on the Christian koan, "Crucified with Christ," a saying by St. Paul. Doksan with Kubota Roshi was a disaster, as I could not give him a satisfying presentation of Denkoroku number 13. He even doubted whether I had a Zen experience at all. In the Zendo, I lost myself totally in repeating the words of my Christian koan. Outside of the Zendo until late in the night, I desperately tried to find a fitting answer to Denkoroku number 13. After the last Doksan, I felt devastated and totally disappointed in myself. My Zen practice of so many years just for nothing. Suddenly, a question appeared in my mind. "And where has God been in all your pain?" Wow! All pain gone. Just one single joy, one single blessing in 10,000 directions. That was the moment when I lost my fear of death once and for all. In 2006, I started to attend sessions with Rion Roshi at Sanbo Zen in Kamakura. 2 years later, he invited me for the first time to the Kenshukai, an annual koan workshop for Zen teachers and senior students. Kenshukai 2008 was held in Oxford, organized by Zen teacher John Gaynor and his called Ash Sangha. In Doksan, Rion Roshi gave me the question, "Where are you?" as a koan. This question as the first of Tosotsu's 3 barriers and a really powerful koan. It took only 3 minutes for the walk from the Doksan room to the Zendo until this question exploded and changed everything. At the end of the Kenshukai, Rion Roshi appointed me Zen teacher. What questions are moving me now after 45 years of Zen practice? Though being extremely grateful for having found the Zen way early in life, I'm not yet satisfied with my realization because of my deeply rooted habit to conceptualize reality. Thank God my 2 marvelous teachers, Rion Roshi and Migaku Sato Roshi, as well as Henry Roshi and the other associate masters of Sanbo Zen, are living examples that further steps on the way are possible. So I ask myself now and then, is there anything beside patiently doing Zazen that I can do in order to let myself go completely? But the main question for me from the beginning of my practice until now is, how can I help people? After this long introduction, let me read Mumonkan number 47 to you. Master Tosotsu Etsu set up 3 barriers and asked his students, the purpose of making one's way through breaths and asking a master about the subtle truths is only to realize one's self-nature. Now, you venerable monks, where is your self-nature at this very moment? When you have attained your self-nature, you can free yourself from life and death. How will you free yourself from life and death when the light of your eyes is falling to the ground? When you have freed yourself from life and death, you know where to go. After your 4 elements have decomposed, where will you go? In the koan, we find the expression self-nature, which means our true identity, that what we really are. Being asked about their identity, people usually give their name, age, address, nationality. But do these data define us really? At age 16, I wrote into my diary, my name is Marlis. I'm 16 years old, female, German, but somehow this does not feel right. My feeling tells me that I have no age, no sex, no nationality, that I'm not even human, but something completely different. Psychology says that we develop our first basic concepts of the world and ourselves at the age of 2 or 3 years, when we start to distinguish between ourselves and others and use personal pronouns for the first time. Most people are not aware of these core beliefs, which are very persistent and affect our behavior throughout our lives. Intended as a help to cope with daily life, these core beliefs can also be a source of suffering. Depending on our early experience, we can either develop supporting concepts, which convey confidence and optimism, or rather painful beliefs like, I'm not worth anything, it is not possible to love me, which are case for psychotherapy. But as helpful as psychotherapy may be, it never questions the main core belief shared by a vast majority of humans, that we are separate individuals with limited space and time. Many people, especially in their youth, have special moments when they feel that their share of life must be more than the limited space within the borders of their skin and the limited time between birth and death. Henry, for example, had a great experience at age 19 at a South American beach, long before he started to do Zazen. But how difficult it was for him to find the Zen way and finally understand and deepen what had happened to him at that beach. Most people forget about these special moments, this glimpse of a vast reality beyond space and time, or let it become just a memory of a strange incident, because a generally shared belief of being a separate and limited individual is so strong. Please don't misunderstand me. There's nothing wrong with a dualistic mind, with distinguishing between me and the others, between living and non-sentient beings, between material and immaterial things. Our distinguishing mind has developed science, art, culture, and we have every reason to be grateful for it. But it is a big problem and a source of suffering if we mistake the word conveyed by the dualistic mind for the whole of reality. Migaku Sato once gave me a very fitting comparison. The word of the dualistic mind is just a tiny aspect of reality, like the simple addition we learn in primary school is just a tiny part of mathematics. I often say to my students that our dualistic view, with its separation between us as a subject and the others as the objects, is simply a projection, the working mode of our brain. In the face of the current problems like social injustice, violence, racism, climate change, it is high time that we broaden our view and start to see the whole picture. But how can we get the whole picture? This is where Zen comes in. Zen is much more than relaxation and mindfulness. There are other and probably easier methods than Zazen if you want to relax and live your daily life mindfully. Yet if you are ready to face the crucial questions of humanity and let them lead you to a radical change of perspective, then welcome to Zen. At this point, just a warning in order to avoid misunderstandings. While you can achieve relaxation and mindfulness by regular training, there is nothing that you, the subject, or I, observer, can do about the radical change of perspective. Master Dogen Zenji says in his famous work Shobogenzo, to learn one's own self is to forget one's own self. In my own words, I would say, if you want to see the whole picture, you as a subject, as the one who sees, must disappear. Naturally, the eye observer cannot get rid of itself. That's why Zen has developed a unique method. When you are patiently doing Zazen, sitting upright, focusing on your breath, silently counting your breath, or repeating the word mu, your mind gets increasingly absorbed. And the serious question you have asked yourself at the beginning of your sitting period, for example, who am I? What is mu? Where am I? Comes alive and starts its own amazing work. Let's now look at the first barrier. The purpose of making one's way through breaths and asking a master about the subtle truths is only to realize one's self-nature. Now, you venerable monks, where is your self-nature at this very moment? Obviously, Master Tosotsu wants us to realize our true identity. But instead of asking us, who are you? He puts the question, where are you? Surely you can feel that this is not a question about our GPS coordinates. It is interesting how in the current situation with its many virtual conferences, is that it does not really matter whether you are sitting at your computer in Santa Fe, Lippstadt, Tokyo, Madrid, London, or Manila. Actually, Tosotsu is challenging the working mode of our brain, which gives us the impression of a world outside of us, with others over there, who are apart and different from us. He's challenging the firewall of our mind, which prevents us from realizing the fact that there is absolutely no outside, that there are no limits, no barriers at all. I will never forget a session in May 1987, when after 2 hours of Zazen late in the night, the floor, a wooden bench, and the wall in front of me suddenly caught my eye. What a shock! No substance of my own. Body, floor, bench, wall, no distance, no difference at all. Just one single reality going through freely without any hindrance. Many years later, one of my students had an equally shocking experience during a telephone call. At that time, he was working as a drawing teacher and gave art courses for children. As a shy man, without much confidence, he had never protested the low pay for his courses. Now the manager wanted to sign a new contract with him with an even worse pay. But lately, my student had experienced his first Kensho with a koan move and gained new self-confidence. On the phone, he started arguing with the manager, demanding a fair wage for his courses. Both sides began to shout. Suddenly, my student was profoundly shocked. No outside at all, no enemy over there. The manager none other than he himself. The whole argument just an empty echo, going back and forth like a ping-pong play. Imagine what an impact on society it would have if more people realized that there is no enemy outside. It is not the end of the story if the firewall of our mind, which creates the illusion of a world split into subject and object, breaks down for the first time. There is much more to the powerful question, where are you? If we persist in letting it unsettle us, it finally leads to the marvelous reality Master Chosa conveys to us with his saying, the world in 10 directions is my whole body. What a wonder. Laptop, wall, window, tree, sun, sky. The whole world. One living body, my flesh and blood. No distance at all, indescribably intimate. One peace, one joy. Let's proceed now to the second of Tosotsu's 3 barriers. When you have attained your self-nature, you can free yourself from life and death. How will you free yourself from life and death when the light of your eyes is falling to the ground? In other words, how do you free yourself from the agony of death at the very moment when you are about to die? In our Western society, there is an interesting discrepancy. Though it is very popular to watch murders on television, very few people have witnessed the last breath of a relative or friend. Feeling rather secure, most people do not bother to think about their own death. But the current corona pandemic does not allow us any longer to turn away from the problem of life and death so easily. For a Zen monk in China and Japan in the past centuries, it was the most important task to solve the problem of life and death. Until today, you can feel the urgency of this task, which moved so many of our Zen ancestors when in Sesshin, the Jikido recites at the end of the day, "I beg to urge you, everyone, life and death is a serious matter. Our life passes quickly away. Everyone must be completely alert, never indulgent, never neglectful." As a psychiatrist, I'm treating patients with fear disorders who live in constant fear of death. Psychotherapy and medication can alleviate the symptoms, but as I sometimes say to my patients, they cannot solve the existential problem of death. Some of my patients are devout Christians, yet their Christian belief does not necessarily free them from the fear of death. In order to meet the existential needs of my patients, many years ago, I started a stress reduction group in our outpatient clinic, introducing my patients to mindfulness training and Zazen. 2 of them have become my Zen students and are earnestly working on the koan in order to free themselves from life and death. Looking at the problems of humanity, there's yet another reason why we should make it our top priority to realize our true self and free ourselves from life and death. In the first letter of St. Paul to the Corinthians, I found a significant verse. The sting of death is sin. Theologians usually interpret this verse in the following way. The fear of death lets man do evil things. I think that St. Paul got a point here. Indeed, the illusion of being a separate individual with a limited lifetime does not only cause fear of death, but can also trigger fights for resources, wars, social injustice, etc. More than ever, it is necessary that people do Zazen and thereby fully develop their humanity. Every minute of Zazen counts, even long before we have experienced Kinsho. I often tell my Sangha that their daily practice is so much more important and powerful than they can imagine. Every Zazen brings the practitioner and at the same time all sentient beings nearer to realizing the whole picture, this incredible reality of boundless life. Let's come back to the Tosotsu second barrier. How will you free yourself from life and death when the light of your eyes is falling to the ground? Or in other words, how do you free yourself in the moment of your last breath? In Doksan, you must give a demonstration for each of Tosotsu's barriers. Naturally, I cannot show you these demonstrations, but I would like to give you a hint and maybe confuse you with an additional question. The breath you are taking now at this very moment while you are listening to my teisho and your last breath, are they the same or are they different? Now my hint. If you grasp what the breath you are taking now at this very moment really is, then the problem of life and death will collapse instantaneously. After asking us, where are you and how do you free yourself when you are about to die, Master Tosotsu erects another barrier and puts a third powerful question. When you have freed yourself from life and death, you know where to go. After your 4 elements have decomposed, where will you go? According to ancient Indian philosophy, everything consists of the 4 elements: earth, water, fire, and air. After your 4 elements have decomposed simply means after you have died. It was in the late 80s when I worked on Tosotsu's third barrier for the first time and wondered where I would go after I have died. At first, the only place I could imagine was the graveyard. Many years later, I mentioned this in a conversation with Sister Kathleen Riley, who is a Maryknoll sister and associate Zen master of Sanbo Zen. But Marlis, she exclaimed, why could you, as a devout Catholic, only imagine the graveyard? What about resurrection? Indeed, for a long time, I had believed in resurrection as Catholic Church teaches it. But what this really meant remained vague and unclear to me. My traditional belief in resurrection had neither been able to prevent my intense fear of death during my medical studies, nor could it give me any concrete image of an afterlife while I was working on Mumunkan number 47. Now, more than 30 years after my first go through Tosotsu's barriers, my understanding of resurrection has radically changed. Jesus Christ, who had given me so much hope, warmth, inspiration, and support during the first decades of my spiritual way, will forever remain infinitely near and dear to me. But I must admit that I have lost my traditional Christian belief. Belief and hope have been replaced by experience and certainty. There is absolutely no God outside. Even speaking of God in us, as it is often the case in the New Testament, is not precise enough. An expression that is nearer to the true fact could be nothing but God. But I don't like the word God so much any longer, as it evokes so many different ideas in people. More to the point is N. That's life. That's death. That's the end of the story. Tosotsu's third barrier is powerfully challenging all our concepts of an afterlife. For example, the assumption of an atheist that there is no life after death. The Christian belief in resurrection as something miraculous that maybe happens after death if you have behaved well enough in life, as well as a traditional Buddhist belief in reincarnation, which lets many Buddhists worry whether after death they will have a good or bad rebirth. I don't know who told me this story about Yamada Koan Roshi, the second abbot of Sanbo Zen. Maybe it was Mikako Sato Roshi, Sister Kathleen, or the German Zen teacher Rainer Hoth, who all knew Koan Roshi very well. When a Zen student asked Koan Roshi whether he believed in reincarnation, he smiled and said, "Yes, I do. I believe in reincarnation at every moment." What a boundless words opens with this statement so different from our narrow concepts of an afterlife. I hope you can get a feeling of its unique freshness, freedom, and peace. Maybe the Christians among you would like to know how I see resurrection now after so many years of Zen practice. At this point, let me tell you about a marvelous teacher Migaku gave us in 2011 at a session in the Zen Center of Father Johannes Kopp in Essen. You must know that Migaku is not only an associate Zen master of Sanbo Zen, but also a renowned theology professor who researched the history of the New Testament. Being aware that most members of the Essen Sangha are devout Christians, Migaku didn't give Teisho on a koan, but tried to convey the true fact by talking about the suffering and death of Jesus and the experience of resurrection. Vividly, he described how the disciples who had put all their hope in their beloved Master Jesus were totally devastated when he was captured, sentenced, and executed on the cross. Crucifixion at that time did not only mean the physical destruction of a person, but also social and religious annihilation, as it took away any hope for an afterlife. One can imagine how terrible they must have felt. Their old life, their hopes, their concepts, their future completely gone. In such a desperate state of mind, they went to the grave. Whether there was a dead body in it or not does not matter. Suddenly something totally unexpected happened to them. No miracle, no ghostly apparition, but a breakthrough to the true fact: Jesus, their beloved master, everywhere. They themselves, the other disciples, the rocky ground, the bushes, the sky, crowds flying over them, the wind. Only Jesus. No death, just life, limitless life. I totally agree with Migaku that resurrection, as the first disciples of Jesus experienced, it was a collective enlightenment, a breakthrough to the fact that people do not die. And I will never forget what he said at the end of his teaching. How can we experience resurrection as the first disciples did it? We cannot repeat what happened back then and let a beloved person die. But we can do Zazen and experience death and resurrection on our cushion, experimentally, like in a laboratory. That's the Tosotsu's third barrier. In case you are working on this koan, please forget what I have said. Speaking of resurrection or reincarnation in Doksan won't work. Intellectual reasoning will not lead you to the fitting answer. Just sit and let Master Tosotsu himself show you where you go after you have died. In the end of this far too long teacher, I want to apologize for the many words I have made and thank you from my heart for listening so patiently. I chose this koan as it contains important questions that have occupied me for a long time, and because of the current corona pandemic, which let so many people be afraid of contagion, illness, and death. Though every one of us must be careful in order to protect others and ourselves from infection, there is no need to worry. People do not die. We are safe from the beginning. Our abbot, Ryen Roshi, sees it as a mission of Sanbo Zen to spread this wonderful fact to as many people as possible. He wrote a short and very powerful text with the title, people do not die. So please forget my Teisho and read his article on our Sanbo Zen homepage. Thank you very much. Thank you, dear Henry. All the best to you and your son.
Marlis, thank you, thank you, thank you. What a profound and moving and beautiful talk. What a great gift to us. Thank you, thank you. I just also want to remark on how very, very beautifully you use the English language. I mean, it's really like not just a native speaker, but an extremely fine writer. Beautiful sentences and such a clear, heartfelt message to us. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Please, everybody, just let the deep beauty of Marlis's wisdom just soak in the rest of today. Thank you, Marlis. Right. Thank you. Over to you, Luke.
So we will have a 3-day sit next weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And the information will be on Mountain Cloud's webpage and our social media forums. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you, Marlis.